so I've made notes to kind of keep me on track, and I'm going to be respectful of your time because I know y'all have taken time to come out here, and I want to be respectful of that. Okay, can you hear okay? Can you hear me better? Okay. But I want to be respectful of your time, and I also want to be sensitive if anyone in here has been a victim of domestic violence or is currently a victim of domestic violence. Be attentive that there's maybe something I might say that might trigger an emotion or a feeling or something that you may think you have dealt with, but it comes up, and that's not intentional, but I just want to make you aware of that. I am a survivor of not only domestic violence, but sexual assault. My second husband, I was legally separated from my first husband when I met him. Met him on a blind date, thought it was just a one-night stand and be done. One bag of clothes, and within a week, he had moved in my house. Didn't ask him, he moved in, but he was very attentive. He told me he loved me the very first day. He wanted to marry me. I was his soulmate. Anything I wanted to hear and craved to hear, he told me. He was very attentive, very good looking. But he had this magnetism that he could tell me anything. My son Kevin was about 18 months old. He was very attentive to Kevin, very loved to Kevin. And I started seeing things that concerned me, but I just kind of blew it off. He was ex-military. He let me know right away that he was trained he could kill with his hands. He told me that they would take a 5-gallon bucket of sand and drive their hands into the sand and to strengthen their hand. You know, has anybody in here ever played Mercy, where you take and turn somebody's hands, play Mercy? I've seen him just close his fingers and take a grown man to his knees with his hands. So even though the beginning was very good, and slowly I saw signs that he had anger issues, he had opened up and told me that he was an abused child. So I figured maybe he just didn't know how to be in a relationship and didn't know how to treat somebody. So I kind of overlooked things. It got progressively worse to the point that if we got into an argument, I don't like arguing, I hate arguing, so I'll walk away. And so I would walk into the bedroom and shut the door, and he would bust the door down. I would go into the bathroom, he would come after me, he would bust the door down. He didn't hit me, but he would pin me against the wall and punch the wall and put a hole in the wall beside my head and let me know that he was in control, and whatever he wanted, I had to give him. So it went from that till he kept telling me, "You're going to marry me. Nobody else can have you but me, and nobody else will love you but me. But you're going to marry me." And I thought, okay, I'm okay because my divorce is not final, so I can't marry him, so I'm safe. Well, my divorce papers came in the mail on April 29th. He got my divorce papers out of the mail. We married May 4th. He told me the day my divorce papers came that if I didn't marry him, he would kill me and my son. And I believed him. So I married him. My parents lived across the street. They had no idea anything was going on. I was too ashamed to tell them, too ashamed to say that I was too weak to get this man out of my house. I didn't know anything about domestic violence. My parents didn't argue. I'm sure they had words behind closed doors. They didn't argue in front of us. They just didn't. That's the way we were raised. So that's how I thought a man was supposed to treat a woman. And, you know, I felt like I was scared of him. I mean, cut and dried, I was scared of him. And the more his anger got, the worse scared of him. So I tried to do what I could to protect myself. And like I said, it was great at first. And I did this little seminar the other day, and it told me that there's 3 T's. When you know signs to look for when you're in a domestic violence relationship: one, they go too fast, they do too much, and they transform you. They want to tell you what to wear, where to go, who to see, how to spend your money. And that was all happening around me, but I didn't know because I'd never heard of domestic violence. I knew people argued, but I didn't grow up arguing, so other than fighting with my brothers. We did that a lot. But anyway, I never knew anything about domestic violence. And the one thing I had with my son is I rocked him to sleep. That was our quiet time. Come bedtime, I would get him and rock him and hold him and watch him while he was sleeping. And wasn't long after we got married that he put a total stop to that. He's like, no, he's too big. He needs to be in his bed. So I would take Kevin and put him to bed and tell him good night. And as soon as I got back into the living room, he was running down the hall screaming. And my husband would pick him up, take him back to bed, and they would go back and forth till it got to the point that my son was screaming and wanting me. And I, of course, as a mother, I want to comfort him. So I go in there and I'm like, just let me have him, just let me rock him. No, just go on, just go on. He picked my son up and threw him in the closet and stood in front of the closet door and barricaded. And he told me, he said, he'll stay in there as long as you're in this room. You need to leave. I didn't know what to do. I just went outside and cried. He let him out of the closet. Little things kept happening like that. So it got to where, like I said, I didn't know what to do. Well, the first time he hit Kevin, he left a handprint on Kevin's arm. It was a bruise, solid handprint. So I thought, okay, I'm going to take him to DSS. I said, not only did I call DSS, I marched in there with him. I said, look at what my husband's done to my child. So they called him in. They talked to all of us separately, and he told them that it was the first time he had ever hit Kevin. He would do it again, and they said, okay, and close the case and send me home. So I'm like, okay, I'm not getting any help there. So it went on and on. The first time he actually hit me, I'm like, that's enough. Because I was one of these people, I said, no man will ever hit me. I wouldn't deal with that. I wouldn't put up with that. And I was totally wrong. The first time he hit me, I left. Sarah was born by then. He had told me when I was pregnant with her that I could die during childbirth. And I wouldn't prove to him how much I loved him. So Sarah's born. She's not but a few weeks old when he started hitting me. And so I loaded up the car, went to the nearest payphone, called my best friend. I said, I need to come to your house. I'm not safe. So I drove. And this is before cell phones. I was going somewhere. He didn't know where they lived, but he knew their phone was at the house. And so go to her house, and I'm trying to process all that's happened. I don't have any money. She's struggling. She's trying to do what she could do. She's begging me to stay. I wanted to stay, but I had 2 kids to support. I couldn't put that on her. So next thing I know, I get a phone call at her house. Him begging me to come home. Please come home. I'm sorry. I've never hit you before. I'm sorry. Please come home. I love you. And I'm like, no, I'm not coming home. And next thing I know, the preacher's on the phone. Preacher tells me he's been at my house all night. He's been praying all night long. He said this is the first time he hit you. He'll never hit you again. It's your wifely duty. You need to come home to your husband. So I didn't want to go home, but I felt like I had no choice. So I went home. So that's twice. I've gone to DSS. I've gone to a friend. I've tried to get away from it. So I just figure I might as well just suck it up and live with it. I got to figure out how to live with it. I've made my bed. I need to lie in it. So I never told another soul for 6 years what I was living in. I didn't tell my mama. I didn't tell my daddy. I didn't tell my brothers. I told no one. I lived and I took it. But I'm finding out now. Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm crying. I'm finding out now that after the fact, with preparing for this class that I'm doing, I really hope y'all come Saturday because it's teaching y'all how to see the signs of a domestic violence relationship and how to respond to it. But I found out way too late that he was abusing my son more than he was abusing me. And I just found that out ago. And I still don't know everything he did to my son. I kept kids around us all the time. I'd have my nephews and my nieces because I knew if people were around, he behaved better. He didn't want people on the outside to see what was going on at home. So as long as I kept the neighbor kids there and they were we were safe. He wasn't hitting me. He wasn't hitting Kevin. Sarah was his little baby. He didn't touch her. She never saw anything going on, and I'm glad. And I don't know what all he did to Kevin, but I've asked Kevin to tell me, and he's not ready to. So I told him maybe at some point he'll be ready to share his story. And I'm really helped by me sharing mine, that I can help somebody get out of a situation that they're in. Because I have always had a faith, and I knew that God was watching me, God was protecting me. And on those nights that I was so scared, I would just pray that God would place his angels shoulder to shoulder around the house, and that's how I went to sleep, was praying, seeing those angels around the house. But see, he knew that my faith was what kept me going. So he used my faith against me. He would say, well, the Bible says that you're to submit to me. I'm the head of the house. You have to do what I say. Whether it's have sex when I don't want to have sex, whether it's, anything, I'm supposed to submit to him, and he wanted complete control of everything. When I finally told, I had started college, getting my accounting degree, and I had a public speaking class. And we had an assignment. They asked us to give a talk on who we were and why we were in school. So when I got up there, I let them know the reason I was in school to get my education was to get away from him and put my kids in safety. And I broke down. So the school's trying to help. I never stepped foot back in the school after that because I had told and he knew. So that just put me in more danger. So, fast forward, I finally tell Mama what's going on. My dad has passed away. I wouldn't tell him because he had a bad heart, and I knew that Daddy would want to kill him. I knew it. But I was afraid he would hurt Daddy. So I wouldn't tell anybody. So, fast forward to when I finally had enough. It got to the point I was fighting back. I didn't care anymore. I wanted out. I was tired of him hitting me. So when he would hit me, I would hit him back. And I thought, they say you can take a man down if you kick him in his privates. I found out that don't work. Don't work at all. Because when he was so angry and had me choked and pinned against the wall, and I kneed him, he didn't flinch. He didn't feel a thing. So I'm like, okay, how am I supposed to get away from him? How am I supposed to deal with this? I was with him for 8 years, almost 9. Probably separated at least a dozen times, left and come back, left and come back. Every time, it's really weird. I told you he's good looking. Every time he would leave my house, it was my house, so he would leave. Me and the kids would be there, but before nightfall, he would be with another woman. Another woman would bring him into his home, and he would be with another woman. So, he always come back crying, saying he loved me, he loved the kids, wanted to come home, and I would take him back. So, Easter night, 1997. This has been 22 years ago, y'all. Actually, the last time I left would be October of that year. But Easter came around. Like I said, I was fighting back. I was angry. Didn't care. I didn't care about our marriage anymore. My preacher, we had changed churches. We changed churches a lot. He always got religion. When he, after he'd beat me, he'd go to church and he's saved. And God's touched him and he's a new man every single time. And that's what I wanted. So I'm like, oh God has helped him this time. God's changed him this time. But it would always go back. So on Easter night, we got into this argument. The argument started, I'm going to fess up, the argument started because I had a man. Like I said, I didn't care anymore. I knew I had to get out of there and I had to find a way out. And I figured maybe somebody else had to help me out because I couldn't get out of there and stay. So he found the email. And when he did, do y'all know what anybody in here know what a K-bar is? K-bar is a military knife with a 10-inch blade. He always had knives, but he had the K-bar. And he came into the bedroom and he was mad and he was angry. And he threatened me and he choked me. And he took that K-bar and he held it to my throat and he raped me. He gave me the gun at one point, pointed it to his head and told me to pull the trigger. So he wasn't going down. Cops have to take him down. I pulled the trigger. There was no bullets in it. That just made it matter that I pulled the trigger. So he went upstairs and he got my son. Kevin was 10 years old. He brought Kevin downstairs and sat him on the bed beside me. And all night long he tortured me and made Kevin watch. He took that knife, had me sitting on the bed, and would take and stab it all around my legs. He didn't stab me, but all around my legs, up and down both my legs, and made Kevin watch. Kevin cried. He just cried and cried. And he would look at him and he goes, "Why are you crying? I'm not going to hurt you, but your mom's dead before the sun comes up." Well, at this point, I didn't care. He could have killed me. I wanted my child safe. Sarah was upstairs sleeping. So I was like, okay. I begged him. I told him we would stay together. I loved him. I would do anything he wanted. I would have sex with him. I would do anything. Just let my child go. So he told me to take Kevin upstairs. So I took him upstairs and I told him, I said, "Kevin, I don't care what you hear. Don't come down those stairs, and don't let your sister come down those stairs." So when I come down the stairs, I took off running. I went out one door, he went out the other. Get to the neighbor's house. If I could just get there, they would protect me, and I would be safe. They knew what was going on. So, ran away. It was raining. I ran around this way to the swimming pool. He ran this way. I slid in the mud. He dragged me in by the hair of my head. So again, I coddled him, told him everything he wanted to hear, or I thought he wanted to hear. Told him I promised if he got help, I'd stand by his side. I would not leave him. So he believed me. So when the sun come up, we got in the car. I took the kids to daycare. We got in the car. I drove him to Charter. It's out in Greer area somewhere. And we walked at the door and I said, "We're here to get him some help." Well, they put him in one room and me in the other. And the lady comes in and she said, "He said that he's raped you and beat you all night." And she said, "I want you to get in your car and leave." And I was like, okay. I said, "What about him?" She said, "We're putting him in a cab on the way to the police department." She said, "He's offered to turn himself in." I said, okay. So I went home. And a few hours later, I get a phone call from Pam Johnson. She was a victim advocate at the sheriff's office. She called and she said, "We have your husband here." And she said, "He said he's raped and beat you." And I said, "Yeah. I need you to come into the sheriff's office and talk to us." I said, "I'm not going anywhere. I don't want nowhere around him." And she said, "The state's going to file charges. The state's going to file charges." She said, "We just need you to come." And I said, "No, if y'all want to talk to me, y'all come here." So they did. They came and they took the mattress and they took the sheets and they took the K-bar. I said, "Please take the knife." They took the guns. They took them all out of the house. And he went to jail. They charged him with spousal sexual battery. Well, nobody would bail him out, but after about 3 weeks, he got out on his own recognizance. And it's the first time, I'm still scared of him, but he's telling me that he loves me. He gets down on his knees with me and he prays. And it's the first time in our marriage he's ever prayed with me, ever got down on his knees and prayed. And we prayed all night. And I thought, "God, thank you. You've touched this man. We can have a marriage now and a good relationship." So I let him come home. That was the big mistake. Things were good that was in April, so the last instance happened in October. But he had gotten to the point that it was just too bad, and I said, "You've got to leave. I can't do this anymore." Well, DSS finally stopped in, and because of what he did to Kevin, they forbid him to see the kids, either one of them, and put an order in place. Gave me an order of protection, them an order of protection. And so for 3 months, things were really quiet. I didn't hear from him. I'm thinking, I'm still scared because I don't know what's going on or if he's going to show up at the door. Don't even know where he is. But we're finally getting a little bit of normalcy in our life. And the neighbor, her husband would come over and check on us and make sure everything was okay. And it's not. The time had changed, and it's about 7 o'clock at night. The kids are upstairs playing, and I hear a knock on the door. So I go to the door. And when I open it, I hear, "Surprise, surprise." And he stuck his foot in the door. And I tried to push his foot out, and I couldn't push his foot out. So I went to grab the telephone to call the police. And he had another knife. And he said, "Call them, but they'll be dead. You'll be dead before they get here." And he said, "Go to the bathroom and strip." I said, "No, you're not doing that to me again. No." He said, "Go." And he forced me. We got in the bathroom, and he started to rape me again. And I hear this on the bathroom door. And I hear, "Mama, I'm going to be sick. I'm going to throw up." It was Kevin. And he looked at me and he said, "Take him upstairs or he's dead." And he's talking in the third person, which was really weird. I would call him by his name and he would go, "That's not my name." I'm like, "What is your name?" "That's a good name for me." "What?" "Yeah, that." I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, what? That's my name." So he's doing this, and I'm like, okay, is he faking or is he really just out of his head? And so I knew at that point that it was going to be bad. So again, I took the kids upstairs, and I said, "Kevin, don't come down those stairs. I don't care what you hear." And all night long, he beat me, and he choked me, and he raped me. Whole time telling me he loved me, and that I was his world, and I meant everything to him. So I told him, "I love you. I want us to be together. But it's getting ready for the sun to come." And I said, "If the neighbors see you here, they're going to call the police because you're not supposed to be anywhere around us." And I said, "But if you'll leave, then I'll meet you later." and I'll go and I'll drop the orders of protection, and we'll get back together. Anything I thought he wanted to hear, I told him. So he said, okay. It was still dark outside when he left. So I didn't know if he was looking in the windows. I didn't know what was going on. So I went upstairs and I got the kids, and I took their school book bags and I dumped all their books on the floor. And I packed what clothes I could for each of them in their book bag. And I knew when I walked out that door, I was never going home. And if I did, I would be dead. So I took the kids to daycare. And they had been there long enough to where these people were like family. I said, hide my kids. I will be back in a little while. They said, okay. She called her husband. Her husband come up there. They hid Kevin and Sarah. So I told them, I said, I'll be back. So I left and I went to my job. Well, back up. First I went to Mama's house and got the gun. I got Daddy's gun. And then I went to work. And I said, I need my paycheck. And they was like, what? I'm like, my husband tried to kill me last night. I need my check. They said, give us about an hour. So they cut my check. They gave me my check. I took my check. I took the gun. I went back to daycare, picked up the kids. He had already been there hunting for the kids. They hid them and told them that they weren't there. They hadn't seen them. So I took the kids and we went on the run. I didn't know any place to go. I was 22 when I met him. So, I'm still in my 20s. I didn't know anywhere to go. But I knew we could go to Lake Lure and get a cheap hotel and stay there for a little while, at least be away from him, So we went to a hotel. And, of course, with food and hotel, it didn't take long until I had no money anymore. So I had no money. I had no place to go. Didn't know what to do. So I picked up the phone and I called Pam Johnson at the sheriff's office. And I told her, I said, I'm hiding. And she said, come here. I will keep you safe. I'll put you in a shelter. He can't get to you. So I did. We stayed in the shelter for 3 months. The guy that I had been emailing, I stayed in touch with him at the shelter, and he sent me a Greyhound bus ticket to go to California. So me and 2 kids pile on a bus and go to California. We don't know this guy. We've met him like once. But I had no option. I had to leave. And I knew if he found me, I'd be dead. So we went to California. We spent a year out there. And then finally come home. When we came home, we stayed in hiding. Like 4 years, something like that. Nobody, Mama and my brother knew where we were. No other extended family knew where we were. I had come when I first come back. I stayed with Mama. We got us a place. We trying to get on our feet. I put the kids, they were in District 3, so I put them in different schools, but I wanted to keep them in the same district. That first Friday when I went to the daycare to pick them up on Friday, Kevin looked at me and he said, Mama, we got a problem. And I said, what? And said Sarah saw her stepmama. He had remarried. We had got our divorce when I was in California. I flew back for it. But his wife was working at the cafeteria at the school. And out of all the kids in the school, she picked Sarah out. She approached Sarah. She told Sarah, baby brother or sister, that they had Christmas presents for her. And they wanted her at their house. So, there's nothing I can do. It's Friday. So, Monday morning, I go to her school. And they're like, yeah, that's his wife. So they confirmed that. Then he called the middle school where Kevin was and found out she had been at his school the week before. Earlier in that week. So she had found both my kids. And our divorce order was that he was not to have any contact, even third-party contact with us. But he found us. And that's when we went into hiding. But me and Kevin made a pact. Sarah didn't see any of this. We felt like she needed to grow up and have a normal childhood. Me and my 10-year-old son made a pact that she was not going to know what happened. We were going to live with it. We were not going to tell her. But we didn't for years. I started working for Safe Homes and was asked to go speak to a group of judges. I told you he got charged with spousal sexual battery. Well, in order for them to continue to press charges, I had to testify against him. You can't ask a victim who's scared to death of her abuser to go in a courtroom and face him and be safe. I wouldn't do it. I refused. So, because I wouldn't testify, they pled it in front of a judge that they knew would give him probation. So he got probation, sentenced 10 years, got 3 years probation, time served, never went to jail for what he did. He was just on probation. After he located us, my neighbor helped me. We went to his probation officer. We're like, okay, he's found her. What do we do? And he's like, there's nothing we can do. And she said, so you're not going to do anything unless you find her dead body somewhere? And they're like, well, our hands are kind of tied. We can't do anything else. But I wanted to share something with y'all. When we were back it up a little bit. I told you we hid from Sarah what happened. We decided, before I was asked to speak with the judges, I come home and I told Kevin, I said, Kevin, we have to come clean. We have to tell Sarah because she can't hear what happened from somebody else. She has to hear it from us. So we sat her down. She was 6 or 7 years old, maybe a little older. We sat her down and I said, you start and I'll finish. So he started, and he started, even then, told me stuff that I wasn't aware of. And then I filled in the blanks. And I told her, I said, they've asked me to speak, so maybe they can change the laws. And so I went to this, I don't know, some kind of conference and spoke to a group of judges. But I wanted to share one thing with y'all. My son, when we were in the shelter, he had a therapist. And they have children's therapists, they have adults therapists. Therapist what's got me through everything. Even when I went to California, I started having